welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Now, let's look at the BP Gulf oil spill question. The potential here is that the tremendous public furor about this outrageous situation can be used to shift U.S. public opinion against financial globalization. One of the main tenets of financial globalization, as preached by Soros and others, is that foreign companies can come into your country and loot your natural resources without any regulation on them, or very little pro forma regulation. Not just hot money can come around, but foreign companies can come in and loot you. Think of those Spanish predators that have bought the Ohio Turnpike and the Indiana Turnpike and the rest of it, right? This is the essence of globalization. Foreign finance oligarchs who come in and prey and feast on your flesh. Now, the fact that British Petroleum, BP, is this foreign corporation, it is the Anglo-Iranian oil company, right? Starts at the Abadan refinery and the Karg Island terminal. It's what the British had in their sphere of influence in Iran, which they occupied during World War II, is a golden opportunity because it allows the entire thing to be framed in terms of a need to return to protectionism, mercantilism, and dirigism, as I would say. So we've got the potential of a huge backlash against economic globalization, and because now of the struggle about will BP be able to pay its liabilities to all the victims that it has inflicted damage on, there is a threat to the subservience of the U.S., the U.S.-British special relationship. Now, let me just say a word about this special relationship. People, because of the low levels of political understanding in our time, people seem to have the idea, and the British love to, people like Clegg and Cameron to some extent, but mainly Clegg, have tried to cater to this, right? Back during the time of Tony Blair, that Tony Blair was Bush's lapdog. Well, no, I think it's the other way around. I think that Bush, the cretin, the moron, was led around by his nose by the wily schemer Tony Blair. It's not that the U.S. was making policy for Britain, but that Tony Blair was making policy for the U.S., and then that policy came back to Britain, I guess, in the second phase. Remember, in 1990, you can see it documented in my book, the unauthorized biography of George Bush the Elder. Bush the Elder, Mad Dog Bush the Elder, was very shaky about whether he would attack Iraq in Kuwait, right after the Iraqis took over Kuwait. There was a real moment when Bush said, do I really want to do this? Looking back at Lyndon B. Johnson, look what happened to him. Looking back at Nixon, what happened to him. Is it really wise to engage in a lunatic foreign adventure? Thatcher came in and she boasted, right? Thatcher, this harpy, this absolutely repulsive individual, came in and basically beat Bush the Elder over the head with her famous sadistic, sadomasochistic pocketbook. And she said that she had performed an emergency backbone implant on Bush the Elder to get him to attack Kuwait. This is a British sphere of influence, right? British puppet states there in the Gulf. And then similarly, on the day of September 11th, 2001, remember that it's Tony Blair who tells Bush the Younger, you've got to go on television and say, Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. You've got to say it's terrorism. You can't obviously face the fact that this was a coup d'etat coming from inside the U.S. Intelligence community. Oh, no. So what you see is the pattern that the British engage in these acts of incitement that are effective in pushing the U.S. presidents, these weaklings and namby-pambies that they are, to do what the cause of imperialism seems to demand, right? The Anglo-American Empire, but the British come in and enforce the aggressive, adventuristic side of it, the lunatic side. And also remember, August 15th, 1971. Who brought down the Bretton Woods system? Most people think France. No. Britain demanded the payment in gold of about $3 billion, which would have started a gold run on the U.S. Treasury. And that you can read about in Surviving the Cataclysm. And then, of course, there's the fall of Lehman Brothers. We got to see whether CNBC does justice to this. It's when the British Barclays Bank back out that they get to the end of the weekend and there's no buyer for Lehman, because that was the only possibility. And this was done by the British government. It was a regulator who said, no, you can't do that. That was Gordon Brown. So perfide Albion, the perfidious Albion, that they're treacherous, right? They manipulate you. This is the British ruling class. And I'm speaking from the Yorkshire point of view, right? Skeptical about the court, skeptical about the Bank of England, skeptical about the Foreign Office, skeptical about London policies in general. This is a strand of North of England thinking, I guess you might say. So now we've got BP. Now, BP wants to pay out a dividend of $2.5 billion. No, this is no good. They're not going to have enough money to pay all the damages. So I think, though, that you got to keep this discussion on the right track. The principal demand is seize BP. Seize them. Take them over. Don't debate with them about whether they can pay out a dividend. Don't debate with them about whether they're using enough of their resources to deal with the spill. These BP characters come forward and say, our first obligation is to our shareholders. Great, you're seized. Defense Production Act 1950. Under the Defense Production Act, the president has sweeping powers to take over any company that is deemed essential to the national defense. We do have a state of emergency, thanks to Mad Dog Bush the Younger and the Congress in September 2001. We've got a continuous state of emergency. Everything is there. Invoke the Defense Production Act, seize BP, commandeer their resources, force them to use all of the tankers that they have. Naturally, the part you can seize is BP North America. And you better do that quickly, because they're undoubtedly squirreling resources out of BP North America. And will they send their ships from the North Sea? Well, if they ever want to see BP North America again, I guess they better send them over. You can see the problem that you're in. And naturally, this is causing problems, right? We saw Stuart Varney, the British commentator, this former sidekick of Lou Dobbs, on Fox News. He's on the Fox Business Channel. And there's Stuart Varney saying, this is an outrageous interference in the affairs of a private company. Yeah, the BP shareholders, well, I'm afraid their interests have got to be subordinated to the national interest of the United States. Now, this used to be the fourth largest corporation in the world. They've since their stock price has been beaten down by about a half. Whose fault is that but their own? Next time, don't bring in Halliburton. Don't try to save money on the fluids that you use in the process, and above all, don't try to save money on the blowout protectors, and don't try to chisel. And we know that BP has the worst record of any major oil company, right? We had that Texas refinery explosion where people got killed. The track record of BP is one of insolence, arrogance, flagrant flaunting of U.S. law, flagrant violations of the U.S. public interest. Now it's time to make them pay. Let's seize BP. We have Robert Reich, a very mild Keynesian, not even much of a Keynesian, but some kind of left of center, I would hope. Former labor secretary under Clinton, talking about the need to seize BP. He's not so clear about the proper law. It's the Defense Production Act of 1950. Look it up. And within that, you, of course, then say, no more dividends, at least no more dividends by BP North America. What BP in London does is another story. And if Cameron and Clegg want to engage then in a conflict with the United States, well, that's going to cause, I think, a very liberating moment over here, so we can get the U.S. foreign policy out from under this British colonialist template. And we'll be back in a minute.